When Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh visits Washington in November, he will be the first foreign head of government to make a state visit to the United States since President Barack Obama's inauguration. Analysts and US officials agree the Obama administration sees India not only as an emerging economic power, but also as a strategic partner to the US on difficult issues such as a new global trade agreement. Assistant Secretary of State Robert Blake.
Whereas even a few years ago, when such cooperation was almost unimaginable, today the US and India have an increasingly positive dialogue on non-proliferation, climate change, and global trade.
Climate change and global trade are two issues on which India and the United States have had serious differences in the past. Last month, India called trade ministers to a meeting in New Delhi about the stalled global trade dialogue, and they agreed that an agreement must be complete by 2010. India's ambassador to Washington, Meera Shankar, says India had a genuine concern.
There are equally concerns which the Indian companies have about growing protectionist trends within the United States and the use of non-tariff barriers, including various standards to keep out goods from developing countries. So I think this is a two-way process.
India is also trying to work with the US on how to deal with proposed limits on greenhouse gas emissions, one of the major barriers to a new World Climate Change Treaty coming up at international talks in Copenhagen this December. The US wants India and others to agree to strict limits on carbon dioxide emissions, but India refuses to accept terms that would endanger its rapid economic growth.
India has to grow its energy basket anywhere between 5 to 7 times in the next 20 years. In such a scenario, absolute reductions in emissions may become very challenging and perhaps almost impossible.
US diplomat Blake says the goal is not to limit India's growth, but to help it develop. The US, he says, wants to work with India on clean energy technology and help make it a world leader in sustainable development.
Through USAID-assisted clean coal technology projects and practices, Indian coal-fired power plants have reduced carbon emissions by over 90 million tons over the past 8 years.
Because of progress like this, Blake says he's hopeful that the strategic partnership between India and the United States will remove barriers to global accords on trade and climate change. Ravi, Khanna, VOA News, Washington.
And I sincerely hope you can plan a visit to India.